This podcast is brought to you by School Device Coverage, the #1 insurer of school devices in America. To learn more, visit schooldevicecoverage.com.
Hi, welcome to Risky Business. I'm Kathy Kaler.
And I'm Bliss Landon.
And we are getting ready for another episode.
Yes, we are. We're
So
on a
excited.
roll here.
We are.
Episode after episode after episode.
We love it.
Yeah.
And we're so happy that you guys are joining us and that check out all of our other episodes. We've got them up on our website, coveragequeens.com. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to have you.
Yes.
Right?
Please subscribe. Yes.
So much fun.
No, we're having a great time. And our next guest that we're going to have on today is really remarkable, really making a change to an industry that, you think they have it all figured out, but maybe they don't. And they've found a way to do things better, which we like.
Progress.
Finding people like
Right.
that out there that are just really making their mark on certain industries that we care about and we are, very interested in.
Well, we hear a lot about this topic, and what we're talking about is actually mental health, mental illness. It's everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah.
We hear it. We hear
So
it.
prevalent. Yeah.
But we don't. At least I don't feel like we get that next. Like, what is next? You
Exactly.
hear about the tragedies, but what are we? What is happening? What is it? What are we experiencing? What are people experiencing? What is to be done? What can you know? What can you learn?
Well, and what can we pay attention to so that things don't get so bad? What are the
Right.
warning signs? What are some places or things to do to try to head off, the severity that mental illness goes to? I mean, it can
to
go
look
to
for.
a really bad place. So how can we head that off? What are some signs? What are things happening that we can talk about to maybe make a difference for somebody who's struggling with
very
this?
much so.
Yeah.
Well, we would like to introduce our guest, Dr. Meghan Marcum. She is the chief psychologist at A Better Life Recovery. She is also the chief psychologist of a Mission for Michael, and you can visit amfmtreatment.com. That will also take you to a website that will share more information about that mission and foundation for a Mission for Michael. But anyway, we would love to welcome Dr. Meghan Marcum. Can you hear us? And can you see us?
Good afternoon. I can see you. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, welcome to our show. We're just very we're very happy to have you. I'm sure you're super busy, and so we appreciate you taking this time to come and share with us such an important topic and really shed some light on just education and discovery of this topic of health and wellness within our body, and mental health really takes a front page in so many people's lives. I mean, the statistics are staggering when you really look at it. So welcome, and we hope to learn a lot from you.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Happy to share education and information that may potentially help one of the listeners.
Awesome.
So where did you get started? You're right now at A Better Life Recovery in San Juan Capistrano. What do you do there?
Yes, that's correct. So as you guys mentioned in the introduction, my title is Chief Psychologist, and my role is to really oversee the clinical department at A Better Life Recovery and a Mission for Michael. So I'm not the clinical director, but I kind of oversee things from a large perspective and making sure that the treatment modalities we utilize are evidence-based. Part of my role is training the staff to make sure that the staff are trauma informed and that they have, understanding of the latest research as things evolve with COVID and things just evolve with mental health, and we get more information, more data. And then I also help with some of our specialty treatments that we use for treatment-resistant depression that doesn't respond to medication or therapy, there's a few things that we can do alternatively. So I help with those programs and psych testing and neurofeedback as well.
Wow. It's a lot. And it's such a broad topic. I think that's why the reasons that we just hear mental health, mental illness, and really we kind of put those two together. And I'm sure there's a big difference there. I guess to just start off very elementary, what do you look for? Like, what do you see in someone when you may say to yourself, that person just isn't right now?
Well, if it's, someone that you have known for a while, I think the biggest indicator is usually a change in behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that might look like a change in personality, but when people are struggling with mental health issues and on their way to a mental illness, we really do see a change or a decline in the way they were prior to the symptoms really starting to take
So you
more
answered
severity.
my question right there. So it begins more of looking at a change in behavior.
That's right.
And that would be considered mental health. So there's a change there. Could be not attending social gatherings, could be not getting out of bed, maybe not showing up at work, maybe changing in eating habits, or you have the list and you can share with us. But what's interesting, and I'm putting this together now, is that then there is I guess maybe a determination, or a you go see someone and you now have been determined that you have a mental illness. Will you describe how does that work? Like, when is it time for someone to say, I think you should go talk to someone?
So I think it's important to look at what's going on in the person's life and how long there's been a change in behavior. So if it's just a difficult time and, one time or a couple of times you notice someone's not feeling like themselves, well, then you might give them an opportunity to work on that. But when you see really consistent behavior change and people are not functioning well, so they're not, being as successful at work or within their relationships or at school, then it's really time to take a look at maybe getting some professional help. So that's kind of the line that we use as clinicians, is when someone's not functioning the way that they used to function and they're having problems meeting their daily goals or making progress in life, then it's time to take a look at asking for some help.
And what is that help? What do you do? Where do you go? Who do you call? Is it the hotline numbers? Is it a website? Do you call your general practitioner? Like, what is that advice?
That's going to be varied on a case by case basis. I wish more people would ask for help or start looking at their mental health when things are mild or moderate in severity. When things have been bad for a few months. Unfortunately, I usually see people have been suffering or struggling for many years before they seek treatment. And obviously, it's a lot deeper of a hole to dig out of if there's been depression that's been ongoing for years, for example, as opposed to something that you've been struggling with for about 6 months. So that's part of it, is that we don't see people reaching out for treatment until things are on the more severe end of the spectrum. And that's when we need, more sophisticated treatment. That's when we might need the psych hospital, or we might need a treatment facility like a Mission for Michael. On the earlier side of things, that's when it's time to talk to our general practitioner, to see an outpatient therapist, to do some group support within the community when things are mild to moderate. Those are really, really good suggestions. But when we're feeling suicidal and standing at the top of a bridge, it's time for the psych hospital in those cases.
And you mentioned Mission for Michael. Can you explain what Mission for Michael is?
Absolutely. It is a residential treatment facility. So the clients participating in treatment are staying there, like a mental health sort of intensive program. It's the average length of stay about 45 days. Mood and thought disorders are the primary thing that Mission for Michael focuses on. So mood and thought disorders would be depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder. There is a new residence that's specifically focusing on trauma for women. So that's a new addition, like I said. And really the goal there is to stabilize. So a lot of people are stepping down to a Mission for Michael from a hospital setting. They're not ready to go home and back to work. So they need, like I said, that intensive treatment, 45 days of, having a lot of skill-based interventions, a lot of tools that get taught that unfortunately we don't get an opportunity to learn, in school. It's not a part of education. It's not a part of health a lot of the times. And so people just sometimes need an opportunity to take, 5 or 6 weeks out of their daily lives and really learn what are the basics of mental health? How do I identify my symptoms? How do I deal with stress in an effective way? All those types of things are things that we work on with the clients every day so that they're ready to go back to work after the end of treatment.
How much does it cost for that stay, for a 45-day stay there?
So we're in network with quite a few insurance companies, including Anthem or Blue Cross. So insurance generally covers most of people's treatment stay. If you are not, then there's an out-of-pocket cost. There's a cash pay rate that's looks, I think, about $1,000 a day. Not positive on that, but insurance is usually the form of reimbursement that most of the patients use.
I've always heard that treatment centers like that are very expensive.
Yeah.
And that's why, people don't seek the help because they don't have the funds to
or the insurance
to be able to get the treatment that they really need. Yeah. And now you deal also with addiction. Is that correct?
That's correct. So A Better Life Recovery is the company that is specialized in addiction treatment. It's men's only. And
men only?
Men only.
Oh, okay. Huh.
It's a longer program, so about 90 days instead of 45. And there the focus is a dual focus. So obviously tackling the addiction and what led to the addiction becoming so severe. And then also the underlying mental health factors that were almost likely to be a contributor to, almost always, I'll say. It's very rare that someone has an addiction without a co-occurring mental health concern.
Right.
Usually it's depression or anxiety or trauma that feeds the addiction. And so really tackling both of those things is an important part of that program.
And so you deal with alcoholism, heroin addiction, like any type of addiction to medications or drugs.
Yes, that's correct. Alcohol has definitely been on the rise this past year because of COVID. So before that, we saw a lot of opiate use disorder, like you said, heroin, fentanyl, those things. And that's still quite problematic. But the increase in alcohol use, especially within the older population, has just skyrocketed in the last year.
And that's because of COVID, you're saying?
I think that's a large contributor.
And why? What is going on?
So there's a lot of factors that go into that, but there's stress, right? From having to reconfigure our lives, having to work from home in a lot of cases, having to deal with childcare issues, having to mask up all the time. And then there's so much financial stress for the last 12 months that was largely relative to COVID. So when people are isolating because of the requirements of social distancing, and then they have all these additional stress factors on top of it with no usual pastimes, no sport games, no weddings, no nothing like that. So
you don't get the physical release of your stress.
Right.
That's
or going
correct.
to the gym or all those things were taken away from us.
Yeah. That's correct.
Yeah.
So when people don't know how to cope effectively, they will cope any way they can. And alcohol works. It's not a healthy way to cope, but it definitely helps people change their mindset. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we've been seeing such a problem with it.
Plus the accessibility. You're at home, you got the bottle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. What else are you going to do?
It is kind of a perfect storm of the chances of it happening.
Yeah.
Clearly it has.
Sure.
What do you, going back to what you were saying about stressors and looking at the early signs of that. What do you tell some of your patients, or even if it's in something that you do for, I don't know if you have a blog or that you know, kind of educate. What are some things that you would suggest, you know, even for parents that have kids that are, you know, they're going through the same thing, all those changes because of COVID, or just dealing with things on the regular basis of a kid being, you know, uncomfortable in their body that's changing or being bullied. You know, what are some of those stress reducers that you might share?
So, social support is probably one of the biggest things that can help people manage their stress in a healthy way, give us an opportunity to connect, to share with people our experiences. And we're humans, you know, by nature are meant to live in groups and not meant to be isolative beings. So, as difficult as it's been over the last year, that social connection, whether it be virtually or in person, is really critical. And sometimes I think it's the first thing that goes. We have a busy, hectic schedule. We'll still make sure that we, you know, eat, we brush our teeth, we take a shower, but do we always prioritize spending time with others outside of work that's stressful? Sometimes we don't. And so it really can cause us to decline rather steeply if we're not paying attention to the fact that we need to connect with others in a healthy way. We need to have our pastimes and our relaxation time. It needs to be scheduled into our day, just like brushing our teeth.
That was something that I really missed, was my girlfriend time. Just, you know, spending time with
know.
girlfriends, you know,
Yeah.
going, I mean, you and I always stayed connected, but with a lot of my other friends, you know, where we would, you know, go shopping at a cool store that we just found out about or
Right.
something, and you just couldn't do it anymore. You
Right.
just,
Or like a weekend trip or.
yeah, or a girl's little getaway, or go to the spa, have a spa day,
Mhm.
or any of the things that we enjoyed before the pandemic. We weren't able to do that anymore. And I remember being out with a friend beside you that I hadn't seen
Really? No.
that I hadn't seen in about a year.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow, that just felt so good to have girlfriend time.
Mhm.
Like the old days where we went to a restaurant, we were able to eat inside. They're at 50% capacity, but we were able to do that. And it was just, it really like fed my soul. Like
Mhm.
I just felt so good about that, and really realized how much I missed, you know, just bonding with other people, you know, and, you know, she and I are not real close, but we would see each other, you know, a few times a year, and I hadn't seen her in a year. And
Yeah.
and so you just realize that you really miss that. And then imagine our kids, you know, not being able to spend time with their friends. You know, that's been really hard on them, and it's hard to process and understand.
Right.
And maybe, you know, I identified how great that felt to be with them, but maybe our kids don't even realize that that's what's missing. You know, they haven't identified that.
Right.
Absolutely. It's a way for us to alleviate stress, which is really the whole
Right.
big picture here, is how do we manage our stress effectively before we get to, you know, dysfunction and mental health issues that are rising to the level of disorder.
Right.
It's really about, are we managing our sleep? And that's a good tip for kids and adults, is like, are we sleeping enough? And for adults, it's about 8 hours every night, and consistency, the same time every night. For kids, it's about 9 hours every night. Adolescents can use just a little bit more, which is sometimes hard for them to get. But if we're noticing our sleep cycles are off track, that's going to affect our ability to manage stress effectively. It's going to affect our immune system, which is going to make us more susceptible to being sick. So just going back to some of those basics, am I taking care of myself in a way that helps me manage my stress effectively? If I'm not, if I'm, you know, pushing all the other busy work that I have to do ahead of those things, like getting enough sleep and eating healthy meals, then eventually we're going to burn both ends of the candle, as they say, and not have any energy left to give.
Right, right. I'm in a business group of women, and we've been doing, you know, the Zoom meetings like we're doing right now with you. And one of the women in the group, she's actually the leader of our group. She got a house in Colorado, and she started spending a lot of time outside, going on hikes, and, you know, just out in nature. And she said, "Wow, did that do me some good?" And she said, "I really would encourage all of you to just get outside and breathe some fresh air
And look at nature.
And so I started doing that. I'm like, wow, this is, you're kind of you're almost seeing things again for the first time, like all over again, and just appreciating things that maybe you took for granted before. But I could see where it's been so hard for certain people and how they've managed the stress of the pandemic and just how much that's affected their mental health. It's got to be just, over the top with what you're seeing. I would imagine you're busier now than you've ever been.
We are, as a whole,
Yeah.
mental health professionals are definitely seeing the impacts of the last year, the impacts of social media, which is separate than COVID, but is causing a pretty big disruption to people's mental health and wellness.
And why is that? Because of the negativity and the bullying and all that?
Yeah, that's part of it, definitely, especially for the adolescents, the children that have to experience that, even some adults. But the other part of it is the inability to disconnect, to be plugged into work almost all the time and to have our phones dinging all the time. Some of the social media sites, many of them actually are designed to trigger addictive qualities. So those likes with that intermittent reinforcement, they call it, or it keeps us coming back. And is there something for me to see? Is there something for me to see? And it plays very much in the brain the same way that addiction plays out. And so we have to be really careful to limit the amount of time that we're spending on the screen and in social media. And what are we paying attention to? If it's negativity, it's going to reinforce that. It's going to shine a light on that. And so we've seen that, with politics the last year, with racial injustice the last year, with pretty much a lot of things we've just seen amplified because of the amount of social media or media around it. And it's really difficult for us to disconnect sometimes.
How do you have a time limit or an exposure time limit to social media for, kids and adults? Like what's an adequate time of day or amount of time a day that we are plugged in, and how much time should we not be plugged in?
So for kids, the young kids, like under 2, the American Pediatric Association recommends about half an hour a day. It's not very much. For kids older than 2, it goes up just a little bit to an hour a day or so. It looks like adults right now are spending about 6 hours online, not counting work and things that we have to do, just general time.
Wow.
Adolescents are spending more, 8 hours a day or so, and that, in my opinion, is just way too much.
Oh, that's just insane.
But how do you tell that adolescent who has grown up with that thing in their hand that there is proof that, like what you were just saying, how the brain has the same response as an addiction to a drug that it is on a screen? How do you relay that to a child who will be extremely defiant, because what they'll say is, well, this is just part of my life. This is how we live.
Right. So it starts young, right? It starts young. We've got to be mindful as parents that we're not using the TV or, the cell phones as babysitters, that we're engaging with our kids, that we're finding time to spend out time with them, and that we have limits. So that starts with taking the phone away at a certain time. Say it's, time for it to get to bed. It's time for us to relax and get ready for, the next day. And I think the second part of that is really modeling some of those same behaviors. If we expect our children to, pay attention at the dinner table, and then we're just scrolling through, whatever on our phone, it's going to be much more difficult for them to absorb the idea that, oh, there's a problem here, when mom and dad are showing me
doing
that
the same thing.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Wow. Well, the numbers are quite staggering. I've just been looking at this website, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI. Is that how you say it? NAMI.
NAMI.
There is not a demographic that does not get hit, from kids to elderly, and and it is all kinds of things from, eating disorders to bullying to sexuality. Can you direct us to some type of checklist or something that can just give you a way to look and check in and be like, am I okay?
Am I
Do
spending
you
too
have
much
that,
time?
Megan?
I don't have a checklist because everybody's life is different, right? But I
Okay.
do think we check in with ourselves and we pay attention to how we're feeling, which isn't always a norm and
Mhm.
isn't always obvious. Sometimes I meet people who have such debilitating anxiety and they walk around seemingly unaware because it's so normal for them. They're so used to it that they don't even recognize that their body's in distress. It's me pointing out, do you notice that you're breathing kind of shallow right now? Do you notice that your hands are clenched? Oh, so it's really just starting with basic awareness of how do I feel? And, do I have upset stomach when I go to work? Do I notice that, when I drive around, my hands are clenched really tightly around the steering wheel? Why is that? And just starting to check in with ourselves and say, what can I do a little bit differently to help, have a better day, to have a day where I feel good? So I think so many of us walk around struggling and not feeling well with mental health and just trying to push it aside and saying, well, it's all in my head, or I just need to power through it. And, those reactions are not solutions that work.
Right.
So helpful.
It really is.
Megan, you have been very helpful for us and for everyone listening. Just talking about it. I think that's the other main takeaway is just to talk and have conversations. Be okay that it's not a taboo subject. It's not something that we can't, really open up and share some of our feelings. So thank you for helping us do that and be reminded.
Yes.
Again, we want to remind people to visit amfmtreatment.com and also your facility. What's the best place for people to come find you and
if they're interested for treatment or to reach out to you, where can they find you?
The amfmtreatment.com webpage that you mentioned is the best place. It's the landing page for both of our programs. You can find the blog with more information, the staff page with my information, all of that.
Great.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you do amazing work. So we
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Thank you. Wow. Pretty awesome, huh?
Yeah.
Pretty heavy, but
it is heavy. And, that's what I was saying in the beginning. Like we hear about it so much, but what
do you do about it and what's out there
and what is being done?
Yeah.
But clearly this is.
Yeah.
And there's staggering numbers. And how can we not get it how can we get mental health to go to where we feel good and have good days and not move in the other direction to mental illness?
Well, I think, things opening up for people who've been really affected by the pandemic, I think that's going to help. Like for me, girlfriend time is really important.
Estate sales.
Yes, our estate sale shopping. Just getting, back to normal. It may be a little bit of a new normal, but it's some of the things that we've always enjoyed, and just getting back to doing those things, and getting out of your house and
being active. And this is, coming from my background is very much about health and wellness and fitness. And it is truly important that doing something physical, getting your heart rate up and feeling that body response, whether you take a walk, whether you take a run, whether you go swimming, ride a bike, get walking and seeing trees. I know there's research on trees. That it does something to your mental health. But that is the important thing. And then just breathing. I know Megan was saying too, look, seeing somebody who might be breathing shallow or just from the chest.
Well, and paying attention to yourself, so I may notice something in you that you haven't noticed. You may notice something in me.
Right.
But then we can also do a self-check and go, okay.
Right.
Am I still doing what Kathy said I was doing the other day? Because I got to stop that, whatever that is. Or I'm not getting enough sleep. you know, or whatever
Mhm.
it is, and just really paying attention to your body and the signs of things might be a little off and I got to fix that.
Yeah. And that it's
So,
okay.
and it's totally okay.
We
Absolutely.
can change. We can fix things. Anyway, so thank you for joining us
Yes.
today. We hope you have been enlightened a little bit and have a new perspective, and take that home to your family and friends and share with them something that kind of spoke to you today, and hopefully that can help those around you, because that's what it's all about. We need to educate and bring awareness. So we're very glad that you joined us, and we can't wait to see you next time.
Thank you for coming. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you or anyone you know needs help, contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255.